Well, when my children were about 3, 4 years old, I just felt like I was completely losing myself. Their needs were so big, and I felt like I had to push what was needed for myself into like a tiny little corner, and I felt like I was losing who I was. And so I made the decision to go back to my art because before I was a mother, I was an illustrator, a graphic designer, all of that. Always art was an outlet. And I felt like it was time for me to revisit that. But I did it in a brand new way. I did it in a way that tapped into my heart, also in a way that utilized something that I was learning in my life at that time, which was Mary Poppola's Family Book of Virtues. So how to speak the language of gratitude, trust, compassion, and
Get ready to reclaim your life, discover inspiring stories, practical tools, and the path to true happiness. This is Reclaim Your Life with Irina. Let's begin the journey. Hello and welcome to Reclaim Your Life with Irina. Today we have a special guest, Angela Chostner. She's an artist from St. Louis. She's a meditative painter and poet whose works are often described as more than art due to the way it resonates with soul seekers. Her work is in private and public collections in the US. She is a contributing author of the best-selling book Shine Your Soul Light, as well as creative expression facilitator for workshops and retreats, inviting participants to rediscover the joy of play. Welcome, Angela. It is a pleasure to have you.
I'm so glad to be here, Irina. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So please share with us, who is Angela in your own words?
Someone who just wants to express the joy and the beauty of life.
Right. Awesome. What are you passionate about?
Well, I have always been a writer, a poet, an artist. And even when I was very young, I would write plays and have all the neighborhood kids put on the plays. And so this has always been my language, even more so than verbal. Honestly, I express myself so much through my writing and through my art. Um, so I feel like I've come to this place where I'm combining all these different pieces of me. Um, and I was reflecting on the title of your podcast being Reclaim Your Life. And I was really thinking about, for me at least, this is something I have to do every single day. It's not ever just one moment. It's always claiming that moment, always finding the way to be a more truer version of me, to express the love that's in me, to express my feelings, to express whatever's flowing through me in the most clear way that I can. And I feel like a lot of times the challenges that we are given are challenges that help that to happen, regardless of whether or not we, like being in that space at that time. But I feel like it brings clarity, and it's like water going through a stream and it has to make its way around a boulder. Sometimes those boulders are the strongest directors of where you're going. Um, I'd have to say that having a child with special needs has really opened my eyes to having to be present in the moment, having to tap into compassion, and those things that I've learned in my life come back into my art. And so a lot of my paintings are come from a place of trying to understand on a deeper level, all the tools that we are given as humans, whether it's how to be respectful when you're not being respected, how to find compassion when you're in a space where there is no compassion. So I feel like it's almost a daily process, this reclaiming of your life.
Totally, totally. Every day we get to create a different day and reclaim our life in a sense. What makes your heart sing?
Uh, Seeing other people creating something and then seeing other people tap into their own joy as a response to that. that just is such a charge.
Oh, that's beautiful.
How that the feeling that was in me when I was creating it is contagious.
Cool. Instead of passing cold to each other, we can pass joy to each other.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes, very much so. And my solo show that's going on right now, it's Be the Miracle. And so it's not only the elements that create miracles, but it's also the ways that we can be miracles in the lives of others. And I created this miracle board for people to go in and have an experiential way that they can tap into their own heart and their own history and find a new perception of miracles. And so witnessing people go through that process and finding little aha moments, it's been so fun, such a delight.
Awesome. Awesome. What makes you happy?
Unexpected surprises. When I'm so focused on the inside and what's happening on the inside is reflected on the outside. So I feel like when I'm seeing that flow happen, most definitely.
Nice, nice. What was the moment in your life that caused you to wake up when you realized however you were living wasn't working and you decided to make a change for the better?
Well, when my children were about 3, 4 years old, I just felt like I was completely losing myself. Their needs were so big, and I felt like I had to push what was needed for myself into like a tiny little corner, and I felt like I was losing who I was. And so I made the decision to go back to my art because before I was a mother, I was an illustrator, a graphic designer, all of that. Always art was an outlet. And I felt like it was time for me to revisit that. But I did it in a brand new way. I did it in a way that tapped into my heart, also in a way that utilized something that I was learning in my life at that time, which was Mary Poppolo's Family Book of Virtues. So how to speak the language of gratitude, trust, compassion, and to use that in my parenting. But now I wanted to bring it into paintings. And the third piece of that was I was initiated into Reiki, and it's a beautiful healing modality, and I wanted to incorporate that as well. So I would, instead of, as an illustrator, a lot of times you go through there's sketches upon sketches and you're refining things, and everything is solid before you ever even paint. I threw that all out the window. So everything that came to me was coming to me in the moment. And that was the beginning for me. That was the complete beginning. Because as things have progressed in this dialogue, this dance between myself and the painting, which is infused with meditation, with prayer, with intention, all of these pieces all swirling all around. It's integrated in my life as well, but it's been a very interesting journey. I see myself doing things I never would have done, 30 years ago. Like I had this painting that was 40 by 60, and I thought it was done. And I looked at it one day and I realized it wasn't. It was actually 3 different paintings, and I cut it all up. So it ended up being 3 separate pieces. And they're all so much more powerful. They spoke more clearly, as 3 separate pieces. I never would have done that 30 years ago. But part of that comes from trusting the process and trusting I feel like divine guidance that I receive when I am working.
Beautiful, beautiful. What were the 3 biggest lessons you learned as a result of your wake up call?
To trust yourself, to trust the process. And if things go south or in a way you don't anticipate, know that there are hidden gifts.
Totally, totally. I think oftentimes we trust others more willingly than we trust ourselves. We trust the doctors with our health, we trust other figures of authority, and we forget to trust ourselves, and we have all the answers that we seek. Now that
Absolutely.
you have learned you had your wake up call and you learned your lessons, what is your mission now?
Really, through my work, is to help others find the light within themselves, whether that's through a workshop where I'm inviting them to play, whether that's through the poetry that I write that helps them tap into feelings that they might have felt but never expressed, or whether that's through my art so that they have just this visual reminder of their own inner beauty.
I love that. I want to be like you when I grow up.
Well, I want to be like you. So,
This whole idea for this podcast is to bring back hope to people and so that they can realize that no matter how dire the circumstance, that anything is possible and they can reclaim their life by me sharing stories and having people just like yourself who come and share from where they've been to what they have been able to overcome and then come out better on the other side. Did you have a hero growing up or somebody you looked up to?
yes, my great aunt Mary, she was a nun, and she encouraged me with her, uh, I don't know, just her presence, her words. She taught me the Latin words gracias tibiago, which means thank you. She was always giving, people would give her gifts, but she would give them away. And so a lot of times I would get like these gifts that somebody gave to her. And but the most precious gift she gave me was this little poetry book that she actually had written poetry in, just a few pages, but she gave it to me and she says, now it's your turn. And so that's when I started writing. She, she was always just such a just bright, beautiful light.
What were the qualities of her that you want to emulate for yourself?
Confidence, uh, clarity, sense of humor, uh, just joy for life.
Beautiful, beautiful. If somebody would describe you in 3 words, what those words be?
Creative, compassionate, loving.
Nice, nice. What was the smallest thing you've done that had the biggest impact in your life so far?
One I'd have to think about because I don't think about things that I do as small. But I
Like,
will share this. I will share this. When my brother passed, um, he, on his deathbed, I asked him what were the things that made him most feel alive. And he talked about being in the Pikes Peak Marathon and running up that mountain. And his eyes would light up. He's in this hospital bed. He is so tired and so much in pain, but his eyes completely twinkle when he's talking about this. And he's telling me how, he'd always been a runner, but he read about the marathon in Reader's Digest and how it was the most difficult one to do. So therefore, he decided to do it. So after he passed, I reached out to Pikes Peak Marathon and I asked them if we could sponsor a runner in his name. And his name is Phil. So we called this the Fill Up Your Heart Memorial Fund. And we made T-shirts, all the cousins made little rocks that said "Fill up your heart." And basically, we this has been the third year now that we sponsored a runner. They run up Pikes Peak. They'd have a little rock with my brother's name on it. They drop it at the top, and just to kind of share that he was kind of a renegade, uh, very much misunderstood genius type. And so every year that this happens, I always feel like he must be smiling up there in heaven. So just creating that in his honor, because he was not a person who liked flowers. No, this is something that really honored him and his spirit. And I love that doing that has touched other people's lives too.
I love it. It's incredible. And yeah, I love Fill Up Your Heart Memorial Fund. That's incredible. What is your superpower if you had to pick one?
Listening to my heart.
Please elaborate.
Um, it's really easy to overlook that little voice inside. There's so much going on. There's so much competing. But when we slow down enough to hear and to listen, there's guidance there, there's direction there. There's a whole new way of seeing the world. And so my art, my writing, it's almost been a practice of listening to my heart, then seeing where that takes me.
What was the most surprising thing, kind of, when you listen to your heart that unfolded?
Um, there's always surprises, but I'll give you a recent one. So the show that I'm doing now is Be the Miracle. It's a solo show. It's all these paintings about miracles. And late one night, I'm half asleep, half awake, and this name, Andre Peel, pops in my head. I thought, well, that's weird. What's that? And I just kind of pushed it aside. And then the next morning, I'm like woken up by a weird alarm and I can't sleep. I'm thinking, well, I'm going to look into this. Who is Andrea Pia? What is this? And I'm researching it. And it turns out she was a French resistance fighter in World War II who helped the Allies, basically saved a bunch of their lives, helped them into enemy territory. She was a spy. She did all this, saves all these people's lives in World War II. And then she is captured and she's in the concentration camps and she's lined up to be shot. At an exact moment, the Allies come in and they free her. So she is just like right at death's door and she's saved. And then she goes on later in her life to have healing capacity. She heals people. She lived to over 100. She didn't die till like 2010 or something like that. It was, she was well over 100 when she had passed. But there was a book that was written about her life, and it was called Miracles Do Happen. So, what can I say? These kind of synchronicities happen all the time.
Incredible. And is that how your show was born? Be the Miracle Show? From this inspiration and getting to the book?
No,
Or
this
it's
happened in the middle of my show. So my show was already going on. People were coming through, and this is just like, it just felt like confirmation. It's like, yep.
What do you want to create next? Any fun projects you're working on that you like to share?
I'm really thinking about the nature of creation. And I'm thinking how just like that heart space is quiet and still and responds to when you come to a place of quietness and stillness, creation is like an empty vessel or a cave or just a space that's waiting to be filled, but it's an empty space. And so one of the paintings I had in my show was the womb of music, and there's another one called the birth of sound. And they both had empty vessel spaces within them. And I'm playing around with the idea of what comes next from those.
I love that. It's like you leave room for imagination. You leave an empty space to be filled with something. That's incredible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
Um, just this. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's more important that you do it than that it's perfect or it's exactly right. Because you never know where that's going to take. Just do it.
Totally. I think we get stuck sometimes in the perfectionist cycle and then we don't start
Yes.
and then we miss out.
Well, and I see that with children, there's a certain age that the analytical mind takes over the, the more expressive mind, emotional mind, and then they get stuck in having the details of things be just right. And a lot of times that's people when they get turned off to drawing or writing or expression because that analytical mind, which is needed, but it becomes too prominent in the creative process. So that's why I say, don't worry about perfect. Just do it.
Yeah, you're so right. And we forget sometimes the analytical mind takes over and we forget how to have fun, how to be curious, how to be like kids again. And we miss out on life when we are in that mode. We have like, I call it pre-positioned or pre-selected routes that where we go and the things that we must do that we never explore or go for like a preconditioned path and explore something different and see life,
Yeah,
what life has to offer, and find something new you didn't know you had, and make it more interesting. Become curious again, become passionate and present in your life, as opposed to just, you know, how horses have blinders on and they're supposed to follow
yeah.
wherever they are going so they don't turn around. There is only one way.
Oh,
And I,
there's always another way.
yeah,
There's
it's
always another.
important to remove the blinders and see
Yeah,
different aspects of living and being and discover other ways.
absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. If people would like to connect with you, learn more about you, where would they go?
They could go to my website, which is, I'm sure you've probably listed on the podcast, Angela L. Chostner Art. My Instagram is A Chostner, which is ACHOSTNER. And yeah, so you can find out about my current show, which is up until October 28th in St. Louis. I'll be co-facilitating a retreat with Mary Gooden in Sedona at the end of February, beginning of March, where we're going to do a lot of play. And yeah, I do energy commissions for like energy portraits. Just come and visit me. Send me an email.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. It's incredible to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irina. It's been a pleasure.